Imagine, if you will, sitting down to your morning coffee, turning on your home computer to read the day's newspaper. Well, it's not
Yo, it's your boy Zeddy Don, and today on Inspired Empire Podcast, we got Precious. Precious is a dancer. I actually just met her today, and she wanted to come on today and talk about relationships. What about relationships is important to you?
I think more so than relationship, I would say like just relating to people in general, whether that's like a friendship, mother, father. I think like there's so much to learn from different relationships and how to go about relating to people. So, and also just like how you relating to yourself plays out in relating to other people, I guess is a better way to put it.
I feel you. I'm gonna just kick it off. Like, we just gonna jump right into it.
Let's do it.
What is your definition of love? Like, what is love to
you? Hit him with the hard one.
Yeah, instantly.
I mean, to give a clear definition, I think, is something that we're all striving to figure out. But I would maybe start with the things that I know it's not. And I think love has no room, for example, for it doesn't come from like a needing place. It's not about like needing or filling a void, or, for example, romantic is just like, let me just throw that out the fucking window. I think oftentimes we associate like love with romanticism or whatever that looks like on social media or the media in general. I think love, from what I'm learning from where I'm at, because I'm no expert on love by any means. I think it's more so about just like creating a safe space for people to feel included. And so I think inclusivity is a big part of it, and no judgment. You know what I mean? So it's just like, I think it's more freeing than it is like locking down somebody or locking down this or that. I think should be more liberating and more freeing than anything.
I feel you. So what is your opinion on relationships and social media?
Can you elaborate? Like
what is your opinion with just like when you're in a relationship and you have social media? Some people tend to be like, hey, well, you don't post me all the time, so you don't love me.
Okay, so I think it's a fine line, and it definitely depends on like who you're in a relationship with and maybe like the work that you've done as an individual. I will say, in my experience, like before, like Precious a year back, and then before then in a relationship, social media was so much to me, and either not being posted, or like I've said those things before, like, oh, you never post me, or like, how come you post this but you don't post that? And as if that had anything to do with like the care that you have for us. I really don't think that's like it should be like a deal breaker. You know what I mean? I think it is nice to feel chosen, and that's why people are like, in a world that's so focused on heavily on social media and like what you post and how that showcases your life or the person you are, which is so inaccurate, by the way. I think we're just so quick to like associate our worth with, external forces, like
other people validating your
exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Or feeling like there's some sort of worth with your significant other posting you on their social media. Like, yeah, it's nice. It feels nice, because it feels like you're being chosen. It feels like you're being like whatever it is that people get out of it.
Right.
I will say, in my experience, my need for that was coming from a hurt place. So it was coming from like a place that I'd been neglecting, or like a place that just needed work, that needed healing.
I mean, in my opinion, I don't think, if you're in a relationship, I don't think both sides should have social media.
Ever, period.
I don't think they should. I think it's
I rock with that. That's kind of
cool. The
cool.
only reason why is because I notice people who will post pictures like all the time, but at the same time, it's like everybody that does that, it's kind of like what you said. It's you're filling the void. It's probably because your partner's like, oh, you don't post me a lot. Oh, you don't do this. Oh,
it's coming from a place of lacking.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, I think both sides shouldn't have social media.
I respect that.
And I think that would be fair.
It would probably be a lot easier relationships, more healthy without it. Yeah,
exactly.
Healthier.
It'd be way healthier. As far as your relationship history so you're not in a relationship right now?
No.
Okay. How long have you been single?
About a year.
A year.
A little more than a year. So.
Okay, I'm gonna say it like this. Would you get back in a relationship right now? Would you just jump into one right now?
So crazy. A friend of mine was actually asking me this, and it's like I mean, I talk to my therapist about this all the time. As much as I would love, I know I want partnership, and I would love to have a significant other or just like rock with somebody else. Right now, I would probably say no.
No.
I would
Why is
probably
that?
say no because of how much I'm learning by myself and how distracted. Like, in again, I wouldn't know this if I hadn't been single for the last like year, but it's easy for me to get lost in the sauce and someone else's sauce too. And then like losing yourself in a relationship, that's something that I'm like having to navigate on my own. Is being like, wait, okay, what is it that I'm struggling with that's causing me to lose myself so easily with someone else? So I would say no right now. And on top of that, I'm just loving being by myself in my own space and just like figuring it out. It's lonely, but like
Yeah, I was just about to say that. It is lonely.
not all the time.
Like, no. But I think it's very important for people to be alone, to know, like, to understand, to be alone. Like, okay, like it's not a bad thing to be alone. I don't
No.
need someone around me 24/7. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like,
for
I
sure.
think that's very healthy for everybody because, like, I feel like you can be consumed with what is this person doing? I should text him right now, or I should text her right now. You know what I'm saying?
So
Like,
quick. It's that like honeymoon phase kind of
exactly.
vibe. Like when you, but again, I think that's still coming from a place of lacking. Like the need to check in, the need to see what they're up to, if they're thinking about you. Yeah, you can get like, there's a level of excitement to be had when you are having feelings reciprocated by somebody because that's a good feeling. When you're into somebody and you're feeling someone and they're feeling you back, that's something that I think we all want at the end of the day.
Exactly. I
But
mean, I don't think anybody really wants to be alone, but I feel like it is necessary to be able to have a healthy relationship.
100%. And I didn't know the value of that until now.
Right.
I didn't really understand. Everyone was like, oh, be alone. How can you love someone else until you love yourself? But like, no one explains what that looks like. So I'm over here like, I can be by myself. I can go hang out with my girls. I can go do this. I'm good. I can still be in a relationship. No, ma'am. Because what you do by yourself is really what determines, like, you know, how you're going to relate to other people if we're talking about
Exactly.
relationships. So
Exactly.
that was the game changer for me is like, what am I actually doing by myself? Or am I just being alone? You
Right,
know,
right.
You can be alone and you can be by yourself. I think it's kind of more
I
of a
think
choice.
I think a lot of people have a problem like facing themselves too, though.
Oh, I think at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to for sure.
Yeah, because I mean, when you are alone, that's all you really have.
It's scary.
You gotta look at yourself, and you gotta like, especially when you brought up therapy, right?
Yeah.
So I started going to counseling because I just recently became single. So it's like, yeah, clap, clap.
No, for real.
It's
People
terrible.
It
It's
really
terrible.
it
'Cause,
is
like,
and it isn't.
They be telling you about yourself, so you kind of like,
You're like,
damn.
I'm gonna need you to.
Yeah, you like, damn, okay. Because like you be like, this person did this, and I was like, psh, like, and they're like, that's wrong. You just like, ooh, I don't like that.
Or-
Switch. I need to switch into counselor right now. Like,
Right.
So, but you kind of gotta listen to that every day, and you kind of like gotta, okay, how am I gonna change that about myself?
And it is hard too. I will say it's like you don't, at least in my experience, it wasn't like walking into therapy and being like, great, like we know what we're doing. I know what I'm doing. It was like for me, I had to get like again out of this relationship, hit rock bottom literally. I did not know what the bottom of the trenches felt like until after this.
It's not good.
And so it was like, it wasn't so much, I wouldn't even say like crisis mode. I was just like done with everything. Like, and you hear the stories about people who, you know, get in relationships and like they can't be by themselves. They feel suicidal, things like that was me. I was that bitch. And it took almost having to be dragged into it for me to be like, I don't even know. Like some people can go into therapy and be like, here's what I'm looking for. I was like, I just don't want to be alive. Like, and it wasn't even, I don't want to be alive. It was like, it just makes more sense, you know? And when I tell you having a therapist, just like pick up a mirror and you're like, oh shit. Oh, okay. It actually is not everything else and everyone else.
It's me.
I often say to people, like in my last relationship, everything was his fault. Everything. All of my like negative emotions and like issues and challenges was him in my head. And I wouldn't maybe come out and say that, but like that was the story I was telling myself, kind of a thing. And then getting out of it, I was like, oh shit. All of that was actually me.
Mm-hmm.
All of that was actually me. Like, as much as it's a, two-way street, that's what it was for me, is like either all of that was me or all of that was shit I was neglecting and just completely projecting onto him. So.
See, that's hard because I feel like in most relationships, when there is a problem, it's both sides, but people don't like to say it's more one person than the other. Mm-hmm. I was definitely the factor of like, okay, it's me. I did
Same.
Majority of the problems. Like, okay, it's me. Like, and that's a tough pill to swallow because,
sure.
like, for me, it was like, I ain't doing nothing wrong.
Oh,
and then,
yeah.
like, when everything came out, I was like, okay, maybe I do got a problem. Like, I need to go, ass down. Yeah, I need to go to counseling. I need to figure this out. Because for her, it was just like whenever something got hard, I was like, all right, get away from me. Like,
it's easier,
we're done.
Yeah.
Like, I'll just run away.
You think it was when things got hard for her or for you, or both?
Both. Okay. Because when it got hard for her emotions would run. And then that was like, for me, I was like, no.
Don't know what to do.
Yeah, exactly. So then in counseling, I've learned, and it's only been like a month and a half, and I already learned a lot about myself. So, like, I've apologized to her, you know what I'm saying, asked for forgiveness. She could try to forgive me. She might not. I don't know. But
and that's the hard part. That's you got to sit with,
exactly.
too.
You kind of got to sit there and face the facts. Like, all right, you fucked up. If you do want her, you got to work for it, which is another thing that's hard because obviously they'll flip it and turn it around on you.
And it's just more of seeing yourself. Like,
exactly. But if you accept it more, it's like it gets easier. Like, okay, I did do that.
I would agree with that, actually. As much as it hurts like a bitch to be like, shit, like, here are my patterns, here's what I'm doing. But then, like, once you start to accept it versus like resisting it and being like, I hate these parts of myself, I think that's kind of the beautiful sweet spot to be in, because it then makes you more empathetic to other people. So you're kind of like, oh, wait a second, I do have these parts that are maybe like ugly about me. I don't like to even call them that. I mean, people will call it like the inner child, or if you're familiar with like shadow work, I'm a huge fan of all of that. Like Carl Jung's philosophy of like having the shadow self, or the parts of us that are the dark parts. But really, when you kind of invite it and you know that they're there for from a place of love, then it's like that then plays out in your relationships and other people.
See, that's dope. And you're only 22, huh?
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's crazy. She can acknowledge that, like, at 22. That's wild.
It's work. It's like,
how long have you been doing the therapy thing then?
Honestly, it's been like the last year. Like, since I got out of the relationship. Well, I say got out, like, I mean, he ended, I'll be honest. Like, it all kind of came crashing to an end, but like, he's the one that said. And so for me, it was like my world came crashing. Not only my best friend, my like lover, you know what I mean? Like, it was like the death of a family member. Like, that sounds intense, but that's what it felt like. And so having to hit that rock bottom of just like having nothing left, like, that's what it felt like. And then having somebody, my therapist actually was the one that was kind of like, oh, are you familiar with like inner child work? And it's funny because like, for initially getting out of the relationship, I jumped into all this like therapy work on my own, just like researching, like, let me fix my problem real quick so that I can get this relationship back. And little did I know that would start my journey in the right direction, but that was not the result, you know? So I start like researching all this shit. I start getting into like, oh, this is a preoccupied attachment style, and this is what it comes from, and it starts in your upbringing, and, you know, this idea of an inner child. And then I go to therapy, and he asked me kind of the same thing. And I was like, I've been researching this, but okay, yeah, continue. And he eventually asks me, like, how do you feel about having a little Precious, is how he referred to it. And I was like, a kid? Like a child? Like, I kind of resent her. Like, I didn't ask for a kid, you know? Like, this kid has now, like, ruined my relationship. It's hijacking shit. Like, I was resentful. And he immediately flips it on me, and he goes, like, he starts to role play. If you've ever done that with your therapist, it's like a really common, and he goes, resentment. Thank you for coming to this therapy session. Can you ask me why you came up for Precious when I asked her about her inner child? And I was like, the fuck? Like, I just kind of rolled with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to really think about, like, okay, why is resentment coming up? And I was like, I just know she's really hurt right now. And she just got out of a relationship and she doesn't need all that. She doesn't need to be talking about, she doesn't need a kid. And he was like, thank you. He was like, thank you for coming up because I know you care about her. Would you be willing to take a seat so that I can continue talking to Precious? And I was like, yeah. And just him modeling how to talk to your emotions that come up, especially like the hurt ones, was just like a slap in the face, you know? And like was then after that, like, oh, this is how I need to be talking to myself. And then later was like, oh, wait, this is how it kind of is to connect with someone in a healthy way. You then start talking to other people like that too. So that was the game changer for me. So, like and not only that, like not to get like dark, but he asked me like, okay, you know, can you take a seat? We have this conversation. Resentment side of me was like, yeah, for sure, whatever. And then he flips back and he's like, all right, Precious, like how did little Precious feel about that? You know, how did future Precious feel about that? And I was just like, he was just talking to me in this like foreign language almost, but it made sense. And then he's like, all right, here's what I want you to do. I want you to write a letter before we meet next, and I want you to write it to little Precious. And he said, I want you to first acknowledge her, because what do kids want more than anything? To be acknowledged.
Right.
You know, they show you a picture. They just want to be acknowledged. And he's like, you haven't even known she's existed. So he's like, I want you to acknowledge her, apologize for not acknowledging her sooner. And then he goes, and then I want you to apologize for wanting to kill her. And I lost it. Just lost it. And I was like, what the, like my whole perspective on suicide then after that. And I was just like, God damn, like, let me go ahead and do this exercise, you know? And from there, and that was a year ago, like last May-ish.
It's crazy.
And ever since then, it's just been a nonstop, like therapy's been a weekly kind of a thing. Research on my own, journaling, practicing. I work in mental health, so it's kind of always around me. So I think I've just dived into heavy shit, like
That's dope.
pretty soon,
That's
you know?
dope. I
mean,
like
if
that.
you want to call it that.
As far as your journey with relationships, like what is your relationship with your parents?
Ooh, loaded question. That's a loaded
that's what I
question.
want to ask, because that affects everybody's relationship, whether
yeah.
they like it or not. 'Cause I know it has
always
mine.
goes back to like your early stages, that inner child, the part of us that needed just like the basic needs of life, you know. So currently, I'm actually not really I'm in contact with my parents, but we haven't talked in almost 2 months. And that being because I took a DNA test not long after I got out of this relationship, actually, because I got a random call from a family member that was like, hey, so some things about your birth we don't really know are accurate, or if they're accurate or not. And I was like, excuse me? Like 22? And you're going to tell me that, like, you don't know if, like, my dad is my dad kind of a thing? Drama that had been swept under the rug. So I take a DNA test, comes back, and not a single person on my dad's side comes up as a match. And I'm like, what? So long story short, I find out I have family in Florida, and like biological family that I've never met. I've now made contact with them, and it's still kind of up in the air. But as far as contact with like my parents right now, we just not really. No,
never really did that.
It's kind of blown up. My mom specifically. I think my dad and I kind of understand each other a little bit more, or maybe there's more logic to our relationship. But yeah, not the.
I can understand.
Not the best.
I can understand that. I mean, before you knew all that though, like what did that play in your relationships?
Oh, everything. I mean, especially my last one. I'd say the relationship that, so this was kind of crazy, but coming to the realization that the relationship that my parents taught me to have with myself was not it for me, if that kind of makes. So the way that my mom, for example, would show us, and they did their best for sure. Like this is no shade necessarily on my parents. I know they did their best. They did their thing, like as our parents do, but nobody's perfect. And I think you're going to fuck up your kids one way or another because of that. So the way that my mom would kind of model what love was, like she would constantly tell us, we love you unconditionally, but I didn't feel loved. And so not only is that one invalidating to my experience as a kid, and that doesn't make sense because I don't feel loved, but you're telling me that you love me? Something's kind of weird. And then just the way that I would, just her actions in general, that just wouldn't add up, you know? And that then playing into my relationships. So I would then say similar things that she would say to us and be like, well, this is what love is because this is what I was taught love was.
Right.
And then being like, wait, actually, this doesn't feel right for me. This doesn't resonate with me. And so going back to like what does love mean? It's so personal. It's so personal. And I think there's a universal, like common theme behind it. You know, we know what it's not. I think people have a better understanding of what love isn't.
Back on that, no one knows what love is. That's basically what it is.
It's very
I thought I did. I remember I answered this with Graham. I used to think it was just like genuineness, and because somebody could be genuine towards you and still kind of be like, that's not what you want. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's not
compatibility is a big part of it.
Exactly. Because like everybody is loved differently. Some people like to touch. Some people like to do this. Some people like to do this.
There's the languages.
Like for me, I'm not a big on affection. I just barely started like the whole affection thing.
Really? Like physical affection or just
yeah, I just barely started that. Like I never was like, not to throw shade on my mom. Like my mom was very not lovey-dovey like that. Like she would hug me and stuff, but it was just more like she was more tough as a mom. Like she was just more like, hey, you need to be tough. My dad, we don't hug. My dad's very like, he doesn't really talk. He just kind of, he'll tell me he loves me, but it's like, I didn't really, he's a man. So it was just like, for me, it was just like, I kind of grew up like emotionless. Like I didn't really feel.
I was going to just say, like, did you feel loved by your parents then, if that was the case?
I knew I was loved. I knew a lot of people around me loved me. I was a very like loved kid, but I didn't feel loved, if that made sense. Like I felt like, because it's hard for me because I moved out of Utah. I moved out to Utah when I was like 12 in the 6th grade. Moved away from my mom. I was getting in trouble and stuff there. And with my mom, she loved me and she did her best. At the same time, I knew she was young at the time and she wanted to be loved herself. So like,
absolutely,
there was times where she would get boyfriends and stuff, and I would feel like I was being replaced.
Wow.
Replaced. So
watching your mom have a relationship.
So like that was that, because it was like, man, you're the man of the house. Now it's like she has a boyfriend. It's like, so I don't know.
Man. Yeah.
So it was kind of one of those things. Moved in with my dad. He was remarried, right? He never married my mom, but he got married to my stepmom. Then I have 2 other siblings, so it's like now I feel like I have to compete.
Yeah, that's a whole
so
dynamic.
It was different for me. So like the whole love thing, I kind of had to grow into it.
Absolutely.
Like
I
think from 12 to 17, I was like just this emotionless person. When I hit 18, I graduated. I was like, okay, like maybe like I should kind of dive into my family.
This.
You know what I'm saying? Because I kind of was just like doing whatever, and it was just like
what everyone else is doing.
I was like, I can feel that it's kind of taking a toll on people around me, so I should dive into it. So
that's huge, though.
Yeah, and as I got older, I started to learn I'm a terrible lover. Like I am bad at it, and I didn't officially accept it until I was like 25.
Okay.
So then I have a kid, I have a girlfriend, I'm starting life, and I'm still a terrible lover.
How old were you then?
I'm 26 now. So I just barely had a kid. Like 6 months ago. Yeah.
What?
So I just barely turned 26. Yeah, thank you. And I love my son's mom. She loves me. I know that. But I was not the person I am now. Like it took a lot for me to accept, because I've been doing this for years to just women. Like, and my therapist kind of told me, he was like, hey, I know you brought up your mom a lot, like your issues and the problems and stuff you've seen. He was like, the stuff that you've seen with your mom, you kind of do to women. And I was like, whoa.
I need you to lower your tone. It always goes back.
No. He was like, but you were angry when they would do that to your mom and you're doing that. And it was just like, bruh.
It's that mirror. Like,
so show you a mirror. I accept it, and I know I have issues. And everybody has issues.
Everybody does.
But like, I know she has problems that she has to work on, and it's not just me, but I was majority of the problem. Like, hey, you got to fix that about yourself. And it sucks that it takes all those years for that to happen. But as far as like relationships, now I'm like, okay, if I'm gonna be in a relationship, I need to dive in and actually be in a relationship. It's not just about me.
And so that's funny you say that, actually, because my take on that is like, if I'm going to be in a relationship, let me figure out what, like, the idea of having a relationship with myself was the game changer. Because if I'm not checking in here, like with little Precious and like what my emotions are, what thoughts are coming up, then I'm eventually just going to be projecting like throughout the whole.
And that's funny you say that, because like me as a kid, I was very confident. I was always confident. Like, I was the confidentest kid you could ever meet, but I didn't feel emotion. So like, I knew I loved myself. I'm like, oh yeah, look at me. Like, I love myself. But at the same time, I was like, damn, do you really like, I didn't take time to really dive into myself.
Yeah, maybe you're feeling yourself, but like, did I actually love the ugly parts?
Because my therapist also told me, he's like, you don't know how to acknowledge love either.
Ooh, that part. Yeah.
He's like, yeah, you have people that do stuff for you, but you think it's just whatever.
And that goes back to like your languages.
Exactly. He was like, you just think it's whatever. He's like, and that's my love language is quality time and acts of kindness. So like, you could do something for me, and I kind of would be like, eh. But it's more like the quality time that I care about. Like,
quality time is.
I'm not big on like touching and like all that stuff and like holding hands. I'm like, get off of me. But now I'm like, now that me and my baby mama have broken up, I'm like, I love that. Like, come here.
Yes, it's like once it's gone, you're like, wait a second.
I
kind of like.
It's really weird.
It's funny how you got to lose things to kind of realize.
Exactly. It's really weird. So like, now I'm on this like weird journey of like, it's like what you said. You were going to therapy to get her back, but now I'm like kind of learning myself. Like, okay, like there is a possibility I might not get her back.
Absolutely.
Like, so you kind of gotta rock with yourself, and I mean, if she is okay with it and she does want to be with you, then yeah. But at the same time, it's like you have to acknowledge what you want. Not just, I want her back. I want her back. You have to acknowledge, is that what you really want?
And I think that comes through therapy and like healing is like, I'm getting to the point now where I'm like, wait a second, these were what I was fighting so hard to get back. I'm like, wait a second, do I even like that? Do I even want that? Do I even, maybe this doesn't even resonate. Maybe it's not compatible. And then like the language thing, it's like, here are my love languages. Here's how I like to feel love. Here's how I like love to be spoken to me. But then it's like, okay, but if this person isn't feeling that and doesn't speak that language, they're not going to feel loved either. And so it's like learning each other's languages too is.
Yeah, because like, do you feel like there's a thing of meeting in the middle with the love languages? Like, say if I'm not good on affirmations and touching, and I'm just not doing it because I'm like, I'm not good at that.
Well, you don't speak that language. You're like, what does that even? Yeah.
Do you feel like there's a way to meet in the middle? And
absolutely.
Like, because I feel like for me, I took the longest time because I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. I'm like, you want to be told I love you and you're beautiful every 5 seconds? Like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean? Because
it's true.
I'm like confident. So I'm like, there's no way you need that. You don't need that. So, but I don't know what she's feeling.
Well, really, that's just not your language.
Exactly.
I think it's more like, that's not the language I speak. So how the fuck am I going to like speak to you in this way?
But then you lose and you could do it right then and there, which is the weirdest fucking thing. Like, at first I was like, oh, that's so stupid. Now I'm like, damn, I should have just did that. Like, it's that simple.
That part hurts a little bit too. Yeah. A lot of it, I'll say, because it's like realizing these things you would either complain about or that was a big thing for me with my last relationship. The shit that I would get so hung up and pressed on. And I was like, wait a second, I actually see the value in that now.
Yeah, because now I could be like, oh, you're so, like you're beautiful. Like, you're so beautiful. She's like, what's wrong with you?
Like, what was the harm in that too?
Yeah,
like why was that so
easy.
hard?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So like now I accepted I was very selfish. I did this, I did that. And now I'm just like, damn, I'm an asshole. Like, okay, like I get it. I am an asshole.
Or you've been.
Yeah.
You've been. That's one. I mean, like there's my therapy brain.
I'm still
like,
working.
You've been an asshole, because I would say the same things. I'd be like, oh, I do this and I tend to do that, and my brain goes here, and he's like, you have, because you're not inherently that person. That's come from like, again, your upbringing, the way that you had love, if you even want to call it that, modeled to you or not modeled to you, taught you as an infant, like, here's how I need to get my needs met. And then you're demanding that of an adult who also didn't get their needs met. And then it's just like two traumatized kids trying to
It's a lot.
run the show.
It's
yeah.
a lot. So on your journey, like, has sex been brought up, like, because you're single right now, right?
Yeah.
Is that a deal breaker for you in a relationship?
See, elaborate. So what do
So
you mean by
say
that?
you meet somebody, right?
Right.
And you two are not dating yet.
Okay.
Do you wait to have sex, or do you just have sex first date?
For where I'm at right now, it's not a deal breaker.
It's not a deal breaker.
I think I've had connection with people where we have sex almost off the bat, and then it's like we hit it off even better after. I think it really depends on the person, where they're at, where you're at. Again, a lot of what I'm realizing right now is like how much work that person has done or is doing on themselves. But like I'm personally not somebody that's like, I think we should wait, unless it's like, I don't know. I think it depends on the person for me. Depends on the person.
That's a deal breaker for me. I don't know, because maybe I'm just a man.
You mean just having sex, like,
just in general? Like, say if you just met somebody and you're just like, you have the choice to either wait or just go ahead and do it before you date. Because, like, say it's the first date.
Oh, okay. So before you're exclusive,
Exactly.
is that what you mean?
Would you do that?
Like casual sex?
Yeah.
I'm a fan of casual
You're
sex.
a
Yeah.
So, well, it's not a deal breaker for you. No, it's not.
You mean deal breaker as in,
say
like,
if he's
if
bad.
we're what?
say if he's bad, it's not a deal breaker for you. That's not like, oh no, we are not compatible.
I think sometimes you learn that through sex, though.
That's what I'm saying. Like, so
like,
that's a deal breaker for you then.
Like, if it's bad, if we're not compatible, then we're not gonna
just
date.
In general, like, would you date somebody with bad sex?
Oh, fuck no. What the fuck?
Exactly. That's what I'm asking.
Okay. I thought you meant
like, is that a deal breaker?
Is casual sex the deal breaker? Like,
no,
you won't have casual sex.
I don't think
and then
that
should
be that for anybody. But
gotcha.
That is a deal breaker for me.
Yes.
So I was like,
oh my God. Sex has
say,
to be good.
Right.
And I mean, I don't mean that person necessarily. I mean, I think you can be bad at sex. To me personally, that just looks like showing up with like this. I heard this quote once. I follow the sexologist, actually. Her name is Shan Boody, or Shan Boodram. I don't know if you've heard of her. Huge fan. Shout out to her. But she mentions in one of her like interviews the idea that if somebody's showing up to your body or to you saying like, "Oh, I'm good at sex," that's a red flag. And if they're also like, you know what I mean? If, she uses the analogy of like a tourist or a tour guide versus a tourist. So if someone's coming up and they're like, we're going to do this and this and this, and I want you to do this and that, versus like asking questions and like
not learning your body.
Exactly. Somebody who's curious is better at sex, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, because they're taking time to learn your body. Some people just jump into it. It's like,
There's sex toys for that. Like, go ahead and do that yourself. That's how I did. I'm like,
exactly.
Go ahead and put that somewhere else, because I'm not about to be fucking up my body for that.
So you wouldn't do that. Have you done that before?
Have I?
Have you had bad sex and stayed in a relationship?
Yes. My first relationship.
Same. I have to. It happens.
It happens. Yeah.
Like, because you would.
Let me think about it.
I mean, in my opinion, you'd be like, I hope they get their shit together. Like I'd be like, I hope they kind of pick it up. But you don't want to say that, right?
It sucks too, because I think people need to start saying it. Like, people need to start saying this shit.
I feel like it gets better when you do, though.
Absolutely. But
like,
so in my experience, my first relationship, if you want to call it, my first serious relationship was terrible sex, because it was my first. Mm-hmm. So not only was I inexperienced, but also it felt more like
routine.
Abusive, kind of like. It was more like for him, and I didn't know how to identify. I didn't know what to compare it to. Like, I just knew that it felt wrong and that it was uncomfortable for me. Mm-hmm. So not being able to speak out on that, but just being like, this is what, like, that was the shitty part. I was like, this is all the hype. Like, this is what sex is supposed to be. Like, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until later that I was like, oh, okay, so this is what sex can be. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that first relationship, I was like, this fucking sucks. Like, no enjoyment, no orgasms. Like, it was just completely for him, you know?
Right. I feel like for me, because it was also in my first relationship. Actually, I had another one, but
who's counting?
Like, for me, it was just like, well, I know I like this girl, this is not what I expected.
Yeah.
Because obviously you have sex before you, like, as a teenager, you have sex.
Yeah.
Right? You know, so you know what good sex is, you know what bad sex is, right?
Well, so I didn't. I will say, as a teen, I think it's more common. Like as a teenage, the idea of being a teenager is like you explore, you experiment. I was not allowed in any way to explore or experiment other people like that. So I was more afraid of it, and I was taught that it was a bad thing, especially growing up in very religious home. It was just bad. You don't do it. You stay away from it unless you're married.
Right.
And so getting to the point where I was just like, this is happening, you know? Not only did growing up that way teach me that my home and my parents weren't a safe space for me to talk about like the walls and the shit I was running into when I did have bad sex, or how to identify like what boundaries were or how to set boundaries. I had no experience in that area. So I was just like basically letting somebody put it in and was very unhappy
like,
and was just like,
what
this
is
fucking
this?
sucks. Yeah.
Okay. So we come from two different
Yeah,
backgrounds.
yeah.
Because for me, I played sports in high school, and I mean, as a kid, I was doing whatever I wanted. Like I could leave whenever I want. We were religious, but like
You're living
my
the
parents
life.
were like, you make good grades, so you can do whatever you want. So I was
Damn.
partying, I was kicking it, and obviously when you're doing those things, you're gonna explore. Like everybody's doing it.
Of course, yeah.
For me, it was just like I was just having sex, and it was just like, okay, that was cool. This isn't cool. I don't like her. All right, and then it turned into, all right, I want to date. Like I feel lonely. I want to date.
Okay.
Right? As a boy, you're like, I need a girlfriend or something. Like I'm bored. Like
So would you have considered yourself kind of a fuckboy, or
pretty much.
Okay.
I pretty much was that for a while.
And then you
for a
got to
while.
a point like having that freedom, I mean, if you
Mm-hmm.
want to call it that, to being like, wait, I kind of want to be exclusive.
Yeah, but then
Is that
once
what you're saying?
once you get into that, it's like, damn, okay, the sex is not what I was expecting this to
When
be.
you try to like
I'm like, damn, I'm thinking this is gonna be like up in the movies, like, oh, we about to get it on, but it's just
So
way
misleading.
different because that's when I didn't take time to learn bodies. It was just like, oh, we're gonna have sex. That's just what it was.
yeah.
Like, oh, I know what I'm doing. I hope you do.
That's pretty common still, I think.
Exactly. So for me, it was just like, okay, maybe I don't need to be in a relationship because when I'm having sex, it just doesn't feel right now. Like,
Interesting.
yeah.
Okay,
So
it's a
it turned
different
into that.
relationship with-
So it was just like, then it turned into me not being in. I would get in a relationship, and it would only be like a month, and I'd be like, all right, yeah, no, that's not working.
So a lot of sex, and then
Yeah, it was
just
like,
like
this ain't working. Like, nah. Then it'd be like, all right, single. All right, I find another girl. Okay, this works. Like, this would work. But at the same time, I didn't know how to acknowledge love because I would base sex off of love.
wow, okay.
You know what I'm saying?
That's what I was gonna ask.
Yeah, and that
So
came
you
from
kind
me
of
being
associated that.
young and me not knowing how to acknowledge love. That's how I was. Yeah, so that's a problem that I had to accept in therapy. I had to accept that. There's a bunch of stuff I had to accept. So
Well, I think that's huge, though. That's like kudos to you for being able to even say that out loud. Like, I just associated sex with love, so that was more like the quality of sex for you.
Yeah.
Was like the quality of love.
yeah, and it was like, okay, yeah, I don't like her.
She don't love me.
Like, nah, I ain't feeling her.
That
She
pussy
ain't
was
feeling
not
me.
popping. So
Like, no, I'm not feeling this. Like, nope, it did not work. And then I would just make up excuses. Oh, it's not you, it's me. Like, I gotta go.
the classic line. The classic
Yes,
line.
I
I'm
would- I
like,
would
go ahead
feed
and
that one. The layup. That's
yeah.
not you, it's me. Walk off into the sunset.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was that guy. Unfortunately, I don't want my son to be like that. But
Hey, but you can say it. You can talk about it.
I can. Some people
can
will
laugh
hate me
about
for it. I know some people are like, I hate him. But yeah, it's cool.
But like, if I talked about super honestly, like the shit I pulled in my last relationship, especially to like dudes, they'd be like, "What the fuck?
I don't know,
Kind of
'cause,
toxic
like,
bitch are you?"
I don't know. I've seen it all, and I've had some stuff done to me, so it's like I get it. You know what I'm saying? I've met the female version of me, and I was like,
Ooh,
yeah, I've met that, and it was not fun.
you're like too close.
I was like, this is what I do to people. Like, oh my god, this is terrible.
That's
so,
funny.
I know we kind of went over time. I just had fun talking about this.
Same. I could talk about it all day long.
What do you want people to take from this conversation?
I'd probably say something along the lines of like, I wish we could normalize the idea of being vulnerable without there being this like shame and judgment attached to it. And that sounds so realistic or so unrealistic because obviously like the society we've grown up in. But if I could just put a takeaway out there or just kind of end on something, it would be to just really, really not only heal, go to therapy. Everyone will go to fucking therapy. I don't care who you are. If you don't go see somebody about your past, because we all experience trauma and things are neglected in your childhood, no matter who your parents are, it's going to come out and be projected at somebody else. So therapy for one. And then for two, just like, it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to face rejection. And it has nothing to do with like your worth. You know what I mean? Like so long I would just attach the idea of like how other people's behavior, I would base other people's behavior on like my worth. So that would equate. And then I was like, wait a second, other people's behavior is how they feel about themselves. And let me just like be the observer for a second, you know, and work on this relationship here. So vulnerability, I think, is key. At the end of the day, I think people just want to feel safe, especially in relationships. They just want to feel safe. They want to feel like they can kind of take the armor off that they have to have on as they go about work and their day-to-day lives. And I think people want to feel included and safe. And if we can normalize being vulnerable with each other without there being this like shame and stigma when you see people's like ugly or dark sides, because we all have them. I don't know why people are walking around acting like they got shit together. Nobody has their shit together.
That's social media.
Nobody, yeah, facts. Nobody has their shit together. So being vulnerable and being able to be open when somebody's like, hey, I struggle with this. And being able to say that, hey, I struggle with this. I tend to get attached. I lose myself here. This hurts me kind of thing without provoking the ego. You know what I mean? Like it's a hard, it goes into a lot of things, but being able to just stay detached and not have all these expectations that we learn from the media and just being able to be human with somebody else.
I feel it. Hey, well, I appreciate you coming on talking about
you.
relationships.
Yeah.
I might have to bring you on for a second one.
Let's do it.
I like this one. Hey, but I'll see you guys next week. Church.